It was just after dawn when Michael Hartley received the call. A wildlife patrol officer had reported a large bear wandering near Michael's old cabin deep in the Montana wilderness. But this wasn't a normal sighting. The bear wasn't aggressive. It didn't raid food stores. It just waited, as if it was expecting someone. Michael's heart skipped a beat. For 5 long years he had tried to forget that place, tried to bury the memories of the cub he once raised, the one he named Bruno. Found motherless on a cold spring morning, Bruno had been weak, trembling, and barely clinging to life. Michael, a retired wildlife rehabilitator, had taken him in against the advice of the state. He had no children. His wife had passed a decade earlier. That lonely cabin became a sanctuary for 2 lost souls. Bruno wasn't just a bear, he was Michael's purpose. For 2 years they were inseparable. Michael built Bruno a small den behind the cabin, hand-fed him from a bottle, treated his fevers, and even talked to him like he would a child. Bruno, in return, followed him everywhere, pacing beside him as he chopped wood, lounging on the porch while Michael read, even mimicking his gestures with surprising intelligence. Bruno loved water. Michael remembered the first time he led the cub to the nearby stream. Bruno had squealed, splashing around like a toddler in a bathtub. That memory alone had kept Michael going for years. But the world outside their forest didn't see the miracle, it saw a threat. Word got out. A neighbor hiking nearby had seen the bear and reported it. State officials came knocking. Keeping a wild bear, even in isolation, was illegal. They didn't care about the bond. They didn't care that Bruno had never shown aggression. Michael fought. He begged. He even offered to sign waivers to move deeper into the forest. None of it mattered. The release day was the worst of Michael's life. He led Bruno deep into the woods to a secluded valley far from the cabin. The bear didn't understand. He kept circling back, whining, brushing against Michael like he always did when nervous. Michael removed the makeshift collar, knelt down, and whispered, "Be free, but don't forget me." Bruno stared at him for the longest time, confused, betrayed. Then, with a low moan, he turned and disappeared into the trees. Michael stood there long after the bear had gone, unable to move. He never returned to the cabin, packed his bags, moved to a quiet town 2 hours away, and shut the world out. The place held too many ghosts. Until now. Now, 5 years later, the silence had been broken by a single phone call. He didn't hesitate. Within hours, he was driving back, through winding roads blanketed in snow, past the ridge where he and Bruno used to watch the sunset, past the stream that held echoes of laughter. The cabin looked forgotten. Vines had crept up the walls, the porch sagged with rot, and snow weighed heavy on the roof. Yet, it was all still there, the place that once felt alive. Michael stepped out, boots crunching against the frozen ground. He paused near the porch, heart pounding, scanning the tree line. Silence. Then a sound, a low, deep huff carried by the wind. From between 2 pine trees emerged a massive brown bear. It was huge, far larger than the cub he'd once cradled. Its fur was thick, dusted with snow. Scars marked its shoulder. One in particular, near the left, caught Michael's eye. A faint crescent, the result of a fence injury Bruno had as a cub. Michael's breath caught. His hands trembled. The bear stopped a few feet from the porch. Their eyes met. "Bruno?" The bear tilted its head slightly, just like Bruno always did when confused or curious. Michael took a cautious step forward. The bear didn't flinch. "It can't be," he whispered. And then, the bear sat, not in a threatening posture, not like a wild animal prepared to pounce, but like a dog, legs awkwardly splayed, front paws still, the way Bruno always sat when waiting for a treat. A soft groan escaped the bear's throat. Low. Familiar. Michael dropped to his knees, overcome. Tears filled his eyes. He reached into his coat and pulled out something he'd kept all these years, a worn piece of knotted rope, once Bruno's favorite toy. He held it out. The bear took a slow step forward. Sniffed. Nudged the rope gently with his nose. Michael sobbed. "You remembered. You really remembered." He didn't reach out to touch. Not yet. He knew the forest had changed Bruno, knew he couldn't assume the bond was the same. But something in those eyes told him what he needed to know. The heart remembers what the mind forgets. And for this moment, here in the snow, with the wind whispering through the pines. Nothing else mattered. Michael stayed kneeling in the snow, his breath forming soft clouds in the crisp mountain air. The massive bear, just a few feet away, didn't move. Time itself seemed to pause. Michael could feel the pounding of his heart echo in his ears. This moment, it shouldn't have existed. Wild animals didn't remember humans like this. They didn't wait for 5 years. They didn't return to places tied to pain and change. But Bruno had. Still sitting, the bear gently swayed his head and let out another low groan. It wasn't threatening. It was familiar, tender, like an old melody playing from a forgotten radio. Michael's voice cracked. "You stayed away all this time, and you still found your way back." The old cabin stood silent behind them. For a moment Michael glanced toward it, remembering the early mornings when Bruno would play in the snow, tumbling and snorting with joy. That same bear now towered before him, stronger, older, but carrying the soul of that little cub. Slowly Michael rose to his feet. "If you remember me, then come closer, please." He extended his hand. The bear hesitated. Then one step, another, a third, and finally Bruno pressed his massive forehead against Michael's chest. Michael closed his eyes as tears streamed down his face. He wrapped his arms around the bear's thick fur. It was warmer than he remembered, coarse, but comforting. The world fell away. It was just them now, man and beast, father and son, two hearts reunited. From the edge of the forest, a park ranger silently observed. He held up his camera and clicked. The resulting photo, a man embracing a bear like an old friend, would go viral days later, shared with the caption, "Some bonds can't be broken." Michael didn't care about that. He pulled away slightly and chuckled. "You hungry, old boy?" He turned toward the cabin. "Come on." Bruno followed him at a gentle pace, sniffing the familiar path. Michael pushed open the weather-worn door. Inside, dust motes floated in the light, filtering through the cracked window. Cobwebs clung to the ceiling, and the fireplace sat cold. He set down his pack, opened the old wooden cabinet, and retrieved 2 dried fish, still wrapped in wax paper, sealed tight. He placed one on a metal plate and the other near the hearth. Bruno sniffed it but didn't eat immediately. Instead, he looked at Michael, waiting. Michael took a bite first, grinning, just like old times. Only then did Bruno eat, slowly, as if savoring each moment. That evening, Michael swept the floor, lit the fireplace, and laid out a thick blanket. He cracked the door slightly, remembering how Bruno used to sleep just outside. And like before, the bear curled near the porch, eyes half closed, content. Michael sat by the fire for hours. He thumbed through old photo albums, his fingers pausing on every picture of Bruno as a cub, playing in the snow, splashing in the stream, resting his head on Michael's boots. He turned the pages slowly, occasionally wiping away tears. Outside, the wind howled softly. Snow fell in gentle waves. Eventually, Michael stood and opened the door again. Bruno was still there, covered in a soft layer of snow. But he was warm, breathing steadily. Michael whispered, You stayed through the night, just like you used to. The next morning, sunlight broke through the clouds. The snow glistened like diamonds across the clearing. Michael stepped outside with a fresh fish in hand, hoping to share one more quiet meal. But Bruno was gone. Only paw prints remained, winding their way back into the trees. Michael's heart ached, but he understood. Wild animals don't stay. But what mattered was that Bruno had come back at all. Beside the cabin steps, something caught his eye. It was the knotted rope, the same toy he'd shown Bruno the day before, cleaned, left purposefully. Michael picked it up and clutched it to his chest. You remembered everything. He spent that day restoring the cabin, repairing the porch, cleaning the fireplace, sealing the roof. It felt like preparing a home for someone who might never return. But maybe would. A year later, on the exact same date, Michael returned. And just as the sun touched the treetops, a figure emerged from the woods. Bruno, bigger, older, slower. But it was him. And every year after that, Bruno returned. Not for food, not for shelter, but for something deeper. A bond forged through kindness, a memory never forgotten, and for those few hours each winter, as snowflakes drifted gently from the sky, two souls, man and bear, sat side by side. No words, no fear, just love that survived the wilderness forever.